All right. It's so great to talk to you about all of this, Breanne. I'm so excited to talk to you today because, first of all, just for everybody who's going to be watching this, it's like, we met at ROI, which was Rachel Rogers' amazing business summit earlier this year. And and it was just so fun to get to hang out by the pool and have a conversation about all of the things that you're doing and all the things that I'm doing in my business, right? So that was really, really amazing. And then I had you in my group, in my membership group, to teach all the concepts, that you're going to be teaching in your masterclass, in your webinar, right? And so I wanted to have a conversation with you about this because I think everyone should join your masterclass to learn what you're going to be teaching. This is it's such a great thing that you're doing. And so I wanted to first start off by asking you, like, what was the impetus for actually starting this? Like, why did you want to start your business?
Yeah. So first off, thank you for all of the kind words. And I agree, like the fact that we were poolside, just chatting about boss woman stuff and just navigating our businesses, like that was definitely a highlight of ROI for me. But yes, I started this business out of boredom in the pandemic and was really focusing on ways in which I could build additional streams of income. So I tried Turo, renting out my car. That did not last very long. I also had tried a few other streams that just weren't working for me. But when I came across an Airbnb business, what I saw was endless opportunity to scale at a low barrier of entry. So for me, 2020, I bought my first house and I was like, oh, I'm ready to, dabble more into real estate. But at the time did not have the money, if I'm being transparent, to go ahead and put down another 20% down payment. And so I look at this as an opportunity to really learn more about what it's like to host people. And eventually this ideally will turn into leveraging this capital to then take into buying another house and then leveraging that for short-term rentals as well. So a mix of the rental arbitrage as well as, buy and hold and then renting out short-term and long-term. So
Yeah. And for people who don't know what that term means, will you explain what rental arbitrage is?
sure. So rental arbitrage is essentially you leasing out either a house or a home for a long-term lease. So usually about, the standard 12 to 14 months. And then you're renting that apartment or house out for short or midterm leases. So could be a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, but the premium in which you can charge for those shorter term stays is significantly higher than if you were to rent out, your house for a year.
I mean, this is so, it kind of blew my mind when you were telling me about this because, I always thought about investing in properties, right? Like, and actually like buying properties in order to rent them out. And so when you were talking about how you don't really have to buy properties, you can, but you don't have to. I mean, it was like, I don't know, light bulbs went off in my head and I was just like, really? This is, I can't even believe that, this is possible, right? And even though I actually have a friend here in Southern California who kind of does this, but I really thought it was an anomaly,
Yeah.
and the landlord was just like, kind of lazy and didn't want to, take on,
Yeah.
the responsibilities of doing that. And so he kind of got lucky, right? So, but when you're actually talking to landlords, I'm sure the number one question you usually get is like, do landlords actually say yes to this, right? Like, if somebody owns the property, like, are they saying, is it an easy sell, or is it like one of those things that's like really difficult to actually convince somebody to do?
I will say that it really all depends on your approach. So for someone who's approaching an apartment complex like a leasing agent or landlord, and they're like, hey man, trying to run an Airbnb business, that's going to hit very differently than, hey, my name is Breanne Thompson. I run a corporate housing company and we're looking to expand our business and acquire several units in this city over the next few months, right? So going to those landlords, leasing agents as a solution and as a business versus as a, individual who's trying to run an Airbnb game, like that is the main differentiator when it comes to them taking you seriously, but also you being able to come as a solution versus potential trouble. So
yeah. What about the very first time that you did this? Was it scary? Like, how was that very first approach?
the pit stains, like I think it was like middle of like September or something when I did my first walkthrough. Like it was definitely like, oh my God, what am I doing? But honestly, like it's a muscle that you build. And so I remember my first few calls, I tell all of my students, like the first few calls, expect some type of rejection, and that's okay. It's part of business. But as you continue making those calls, you get more and more crisp on your script. And so like the script that I just shared with you is very similar to the script that I share whenever I call apartment complexes. Breanne, back in 2021, when she first started calling apartment complexes, did not have that level of confidence and like flow as I do now. And so I will say, like, there were definitely several rejections, whether it be due to being a new business or not having enough business credit for the bigger apartment complexes. I learned along the way that like I have a whole tracking system now, so I know what property management companies to avoid that do require 2+ years of business credit. But honestly, like you get to the point where it's like you understand what types of apartments to go after, and or even houses as well. And there's definitely strategy and tactic behind how to ensure that you are reaching out to those entities that are interested and willing to work with you.
Yeah. So in terms of, I think before I ask you the question, which I want to ask you the question of like why you even got into coaching, and I'm sure it has to do with this, right? It has to do with like the way you started out and all of the things you've learned along the way, so it can help somebody else to do it in an easier way. But before we get to that, it's like I think it's important for everyone to know like how you're doing now, right? Like you have not just one property, right? how many apartments are you currently have, and what is kind of the revenue of what things look like in your business?
Yeah, so I currently have 10 units. So January 2022, I got my first 2 units. January 28th, 2022 to be exact. Got my first 2, then got another 3 in the summertime, and then got another 5 at the end of September, early October 2022. And what I'm learning is that in this business, you have seasons of growth and then you have seasons of maintaining. And during those seasons of maintaining, which I've been in Q1, it's really about hiring the necessary people, automating where possible, and ensuring that the systems will work for when I'm ready to get my next 5, 10, 20. I don't know. We don't know when we're going to stop, but that's the thing is like you can really just continue to rinse and repeat and continue reinvesting into the business. So yeah, right now, like Q1, hired 3 new people on my team. I haven't seen many of my units for months now because I have cleaners who take care of all of the flips. They take care of all of the essentially documentation when it comes to the resolutions. I have an assistant who does all of the resolutions, reimbursements, reviews, all of the guest communications. So now I feel like all of the work I was doing in late January through honestly like early March, when it comes to onboarding these new people and going through and figuring out like where I need to make edits in my systems. Now I'm breathing because it's like that is done. And I'm now in a point where I can start looking into the next acquisition, which is probably going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So,
And then I saw, you mentioned like some of your goals, right? Your goal is to hit what, 500K, a million at a certain point.
Yeah. So 2023 goal is 500,000. I'm almost at 200K now. And then with these additional acquisitions, it'll just be a matter of like getting them up and running, getting them occupied and then holding. And that's okay. Like, I think when I started this business, I was just like, grow, grow, grow. But you also have to remember you're human, and like there are times when what worked when you had 5 units is not going to work when you have 15, 20. And so the matter of like, acquire, assess, and then like make the adjustments and then repeat. So my goal for the end of this year is to get to 500,000, and then next year I'll just need to get a few more and maintain those, and I'll be at 1 million by the end of 2024.
I mean, this is incredible, right? It's like, I mean, first of all, you started during the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? And then also, secondly, I mean, you're saying, yeah, we're at 200K and we're in March, right? When we're recording this. So,
Yeah.
so you're making, a really good amount of money. And so why teach this? Why show other people how to do this? What is your reasoning for, starting up like coaching and teaching others how to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what you mentioned at the beginning, like this is not commonplace knowledge when it comes to like the fact that you can really start a business with a $5,000 investment and then turn that into hundreds of thousands of dollars. What, like 18? Well, okay, I got my course in August. I invested in the course in August 2021, put the investment into my business and got my first units in January 2022. And so I say all this to say that like these are a couple $1,000 investments that can really scale once you understand how to run the business. It's literally rinse and repeat. And so I think for me, there's this opportunity for education and just knowledge sharing about the opportunity. But secondly, it's not just about, hey, this is something you can do, but it's here's how you can do it. And I think that this is an opportunity where if done the right way, again, like it's like you can scale as far as you want until you're either bored or ready to hand it off, or I don't know, you hit the revenue goal that you desire. But I think this is one where, at least with my students, like I'm in the trenches with you and I'm navigating, okay, so the apartment complex said this, but here's how you can still show that you're adding value. Or, okay, we're seeing that you are getting denied because of your business credit. Here's what we can do with your net 30s in order to get that up quickly. And so I think there's opportunity for not just like educating, but walking through the process of here's how you do it. And then my goal is like, once you're done with working with me, you can go off and continue building and scaling on your own because you have all of the mechanisms, all the tools, and all of the knowledge to do so.
That's amazing. That's how I am too with my clients. I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to manage your money and have the mindset around your money. And then, you're going to not need me after this,
Yeah.
right? It's yeah. And who do you normally work with? Like, who are the people that, is your ideal audience?
Mostly people from marginalized groups who are looking to build additional streams of income through this Airbnb / short-term rental industry. So all of my students so far that I've worked with from like a coaching capacity outside of the digital products have been women. And I would say about 75% of them have been Black women. But honestly, like people from marginalized groups, I think really need to be aware of this opportunity, especially having navigated the housing market and knowing a lot of the systemic discrimination that takes place there. I think sometimes people do get discouraged about like, dang, is that really something I can do? But this is a whole other lane in which you can build wealth through like this short-term rental business model. And not to say that like you don't see discrimination in like apartment complexes, but there's again like it's a lower barrier to entry and opportunity to be able to build that capital and then do as you please with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I love that you're imparting your knowledge, right, on and helping other people to kind of rise up too,
Yeah,
as well.
lift is
And
climb. Like that's my I'm a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and that is like one of our big um mottos, if you will, that we talk about is like, yes, you are growing and you're, doing all the things, but make sure that you look back and lift behind you as well so that it's not lonely at the top. So
that's so beautiful. Yeah. And so many people that I work with are, creative types who have sort of an inconsistent income, right? They're freelancers or they're small business entrepreneurs. And so would this be something that could help their income be a little bit more consistent? Like, tell me a little bit more about
Yeah.
that.
So most of my students are actually entrepreneurs as well. And I think the beauty about the short-term rental business is that, yes, it does have its seasonality. Like we know that if you're in a beach town, you can expect to make significantly more during the season in which people are traveling and when tourism is up. But you also have a lot of opportunity to be able to have control over your pricing when it comes to navigating the rule sets and dynamic pricing opportunities. So for me, like I would say after my first few months, I got a sense of like, okay, if I have an apartment complex that's $1,500 a month that I'm paying, my goal is to leverage or take the levers that I have control over on the pricing side in order to ensure that I am profiting at least at least $800 to $1,000 a month per bedroom per unit, right? And so having that access to not just the Airbnb platform, but other platforms out there, as well as being able to control your pricing to an extent, that has actually been super beneficial when it comes to like getting an idea of like how much I'll be making and actually being able to project that income month over month.
And then in terms of like, we always hear about how real estate is all about location, location, location. Is that the same thing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I geek out on and really enjoy doing both for myself and students is navigating the market research component of like, that's what, like before you even get your keys, you're assessing like where there's several points of interest that overlap, where I know that I'm not just relying on one demographic to fill my units. So like one of my units, actually 5 of them, are at the intersection of one of the biggest healthcare systems out here, one of the biggest universities out here, like 10 minutes from downtown and like 10 to 15 minutes from the airport. And so I know that like I'm not just relying on travel nurses, or I'm not just relying on weekend travelers who want to, hang out in downtown Raleigh. So that is a huge driver when it comes to your occupancy rates and how often your spaces are being booked.
Do you recommend that people start off like kind of close to where they live versus trying to go out of state?
For sure. One, because like you have awareness of like what's around you, where like, oh, this looks like a beautiful apartment, but it's in a neighborhood where I don't think that, my potential guests could feel safe. And so having that awareness and at least, and also like knowing that you may not be hiring people right away. So knowing that you can just skirt over to the apartment real quick if anything does happen during someone's stay, that's a lot more convenient than, I don't even know, like if you don't have a property management or if you don't have support, friends or family in a specific area that sounds appealing for Airbnb, you could wind up kicking yourself later on what if potentially there are opportunities for things to happen that you have no control over and no access to being miles away.
Absolutely. And, right now, of course, you have plenty of help and you're not even, looking at your property sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And when somebody's getting started, would you say that this is a very active investment idea, or is this something that can be passive, or what's?
Yeah. Starting off definitely active again, like unless you have the funds to hire someone right away. But even so, like I have a big philosophy where I want to teach everyone who is working for me and with me how, like what standard I hold myself to and my business to, so that they have the SOPs to then be able to basically replicate me. And so I think for me, like my first few months, I was cleaning. I was doing all of the reviews. I was, contacting all of the guests. And I think while it was not fun in the moment, it did help with onboarding others, so that like I knew that if they were following step-by-step SOPs that I provided to them, I didn't have to worry about a decrease in the quality of stay or quality of cleans. And so I think the good thing about like being at apartment complexes is that whether or not they're local or far away, like you can still leverage the maintenance team for like any smaller things that happen when it comes to, I don't know, light bulbs going out or the fridge not working or whatever. But I definitely think that if there's things outside of the maintenance team's control, like it's helpful to be more local so that you can address those on your own. So definitely active at first until you can hire and automate, and then it does become a bit more passive, but it is still a business where like I am still assessing data, understanding where we can make pivots in pricing, or like I'm about to start painting accent walls in some of my units, because I know that that is something that the algorithm is really valuing right now when it comes to the Airbnb platform. And so there's always tweaks to make. Whether or not you hire someone or not, you still have to be the one to analyze and decide like what's best for the business. So.
I mean, this is so fascinating. And then the fact that you really understand the algorithm. I mean, is this some of the stuff that you're going to be teaching in your masterclass? Like, what are you going to be teaching?
Yeah, so in the masterclass, I'm basically teaching my 3-step framework for how to find a profitable Airbnb business. So the first thing we discussed was making sure that you're conducting market research in an efficient way. Second thing is around competitor analysis. So what is your competition doing? I'm always analyzing what my competition out here is doing, and then how I can outperform them. So that's something that I'm teaching in the masterclass. And then profitability assessment, where you're taking data from various websites to understand how much revenue and how much profit you have potential to bring in, based off of the data points that are out there on the most reputable websites for the short-term rental industry. And so all of these things are essential before you get started, because you could be like, oh, that place is beautiful and it's $2,000 a month, but based off of the market research out there and the profitability, the most you could probably charge is $2,500. That only leaves you with a $500 profit. And so that's something that you could have analyzed prior to picking up that unit just because you thought it was cute. Right. So yeah, all of these elements do go into ensuring that you are making an informed decision before getting a unit. And I leverage each of these for every single acquisition. So I look forward to teaching all of those steps that go into getting the keys.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'm going to be there at the masterclass and joining your program. Yeah. Tell everyone when is the program, or when is the masterclass starting?
Yes, the masterclass is on April 11th at 6 p.m. EST, 3 p.m. PST, and I don't know my CST yet, but I want to say 5 p.m. CST, but it's all on my website.
I think that's right.
And then there's like Mountain Time, which, yeah, I don't know about her. I think that one's probably like an hour from PST. But
yes, it's an hour. Oh my gosh. Any last thing you want to add, for people who may want to get into the rental arbitrage business?
Yeah, I would say just like take advantage of the free resources out there. And of course, like my free masterclass being one of them, to really understand like what goes into the business. I think the question that you had mentioned earlier around like, is this truly a passive opportunity? And it can be. It is something that over time, like as you scale and as you automate and hire, it has the potential to be. And I think that it's just important that you're very well informed about all that goes into the business, and ensure that it's something that lights you up, is something that you can see yourself doing for months on end. And yeah, it's exciting. I love like not having any type of constraints on myself and just being able to build as far as I want. So yeah, check out the masterclass or any free resources out there on YouTube. And then when you are ready, make sure that you do invest in a coach or in a course where you can get guided support and you're not trying to essentially piece everything together that you found on Google, YouTube galore, because there is a very systematic and structured framework in order to build this business successfully.
Absolutely. Yeah. With any investments, I think it's really important that you're getting guidance on that,
Yeah.
so that you're not kind of flying blind.
Right.
And also it's great to learn from other people's mistakes too, right?
Mhm.
So that you're not making those same mistakes. You can skip a step, you can go farther. So
Yeah, for
awesome.
sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Breanne, and looking forward to seeing you in the masterclass.
Thank you. I'll see you in a few weeks.